Hello and welcome. You're watching Morning Markets on Money9, India's first multilingual platform for personal finance from TV9 News Network. I'm Sakshi Batra. And on this show, we get you all the key updates that you need to begin your trading day right. So let's begin with the handover first of how the Indian markets really closed yesterday. And to understand how the global markets are faring, what are the indications we're getting for a trade for today is all that we will cover in the next 5 minutes. First up, the closing levels of yesterday in the domestic markets. Now, you actually saw a sea of green, and that was after a volatile session that actually happened throughout the trading session. The markets came off their low points of the day. They managed to end at the high point. The Sensex was above the 50,000 mark back again. Also 14,814 with gains of about 0.5% for the Nifty were achieved towards the closing level. The Nifty Bank also up about 34,000 levels as well. When you talk about the broader markets, however, the mid cap and the small cap indices about 1% higher for both these indices as well. So broad-based recovery from the low point is what we actually saw towards the close. But what are we getting the indications as far as the global markets are concerned? Well, it's not a very pretty picture, and you can see a sea of red as far as the US markets performed in the overnight trading session. All red, Dow Jones down about 1%. There was a weakness of about 0.76% for the S&P 500 as well. Over 1% loss for the Nasdaq as well, which is the technology major index in the US as well. Now, why was there a fear in the US markets in the overnight trading session? Of course, the rise in the COVID-19 cases dampened the sentiment, and there were indications of fresh lockdown and fresh restrictions being pouring in parts of Europe like, Germany and France as well. And also the rise in cases domestically also will be important to track today. Now, what were the other factors that the markets will be tracking as far as the US markets are concerned? Remember, the other variants of COVID-19 are now emerging, which are spreading faster. That's again, creating some kind of dampening in the sentiment as far as the US markets go. Now, what kind of indications did the Asian markets pick from the US markets? Again, a sea of red is what you can see. Deeper cuts for the Asian markets as far as the Hang Seng is concerned. Over 2% cuts were seen over there. The Japanese Nikkei also losing about 1.8% in the early trade, and also Shanghai is down by 0.7%. What does this mean for the Singaporean Nifty index? That's also trading in the red with 0.5% loss, 14,741. So we can see some bit of dampening in the sentiment right at the opening levels of the Nifty today, right after the green levels that we had seen yesterday may not sustain in the opening level because of the weak global cues that we are getting at this point in time. So you may see a gap down opening in the Indian markets today, and that is largely to do with the COVID related sentiments that are being dampened not just in India but across the world as well. Now, moving on to see how the money market is performing. The rupee actually slipped a little bit more. 72.43 against the dollar is what it was trading at. And remember that the dollar index is actually rising because most of the investors are now shifting towards the safer haven, the dollar index. There is a larger interest of the investors to get towards this safe currency move, especially with the kind of risk-off sentiment that has got created, which is shifting investors away from the riskier assets like equities and back into the safer assets. But other than that, it's a sea of red as far as you see the crude oil market are also concerned. So not just the markets but also commodity markets are not doing too well. The Brent crude has now slipped below the $61 to the barrel mark. The WTI crude also below that level. The US crude is in fact $57.62 to the barrel. Remember, the gains the gains were somehow capped for the crude oil markets. What is leading to the fall in the crude oil prices is three factors that are really behind it. One, the continuous rise in the US stockpiles that is weighing on. Second of all, of course, the dampening of the demand as far as fresh lockdown concerns are there, fresh restrictions are concerned in the European markets as well. And of course, there is going to be an impending meeting that we are going to see next week of OPEC and its producers, who will then form a strategy of whether to extend the production cuts for May also, or to shift back. But with the rising COVID-19 cases, there is going to be a big question mark on that as well. चलिए आगे बढ़ते हैं और देखते हैं कि आज के ऐसे कौन से स्टॉक्स हैं जहां पर आपको नजर रखनी होगी। सबसे पहले आप टू व्हीलर स्टॉक हीरो मोटोकॉर्प पर देखिए। यहां पर 1% तक के आसपास की वीकनेस हमें कल के ट्रेडिंग सेशन पे दिखी थी, लेकिन खबर यह है कि कंपनी अब प्राइसेस अपने बढ़ाएगी मोटरसाइकिल्स और स्कूटर्स के लिए बाय 2500 रुपीज फ्रॉम अप्रैल, जिससे कि वो पार्शली ऑफसेट कर पाए इम्पैक्ट ऑफ increase in commodity cost. So this will be passed on to the consumers. Good news for the Hero MotoCorp as a company, because the realizations will somehow be supported by these rise in prices, but definitely for the consumers they'll have to pay a heavy price for this. Moving on to Rosari Tech Biotech. Now this stock in fact was up about 8%. Sharp rise was seen in yesterday's trading session. Now the company has approved raising of nearly 300 crore rupees for a preferential issue of about 30 lakh equity shares at a price of 996 rupees per share. We'll just have to see how this news really plays out in today's trading session for the stock. Moving on to Rail Vikas Nigam. Again, a 0.3% uptick was seen yesterday. The government will now sell 15% stake in Rail Vikas Nigam via OFS to raise nearly 755 crore rupees floor price, as fixed at about 27.5 rupees a share. That's about a 9.54% discount to the last closing price as well. Moving on to Suzlon now, 1.5% downtick. This is a penny stock, remember, 5 rupees stock is what we are talking about. Now the company has said that the SEBI is actually conducting a forensic audit of its accounts to check the violations of securities market regulations or the Company Act rules as well. So some more negative news coming in. You may see the stock slipping further in today's trading session on the back of this news as well. आगे बढ़े तो JK टायर पर भी आप नजर डाल लीजिए, 0.5% तक की वीकनेस हमें कल दिखी थी. यहाँ पर पॉजिटिव न्यूज ये है कि इंडिया रेटिंग्स ने अपग्रेड करी है इसकी रेटिंग, लॉन्ग टर्म इशूअर रेटिंग को IND-A/स्टेबल कर दिया है ऑन द बैक ऑफ स्ट्रॉन्ग रिकवरी जो देखी जा रही है सेल्स में. तो ये एक पॉजिटिव खबर है. हो सकता है स्टॉक में भी आपको कुछ पॉजिटिव मूव्स आज के ट्रेडिंग सेशन में देखने को मिले. अब आ जाते हैं आज के स्टॉक रिकमेंडेशंस पर. 6 स्टॉक्स आपको बताएंगे मार्केट खुलने से सीधा पहले. अगर आपको आज खरीदारी के मौके ढूंढने हैं या कहीं पर भी ट्रेड करने के मौके ढूंढने हैं तो डेफिनेटली ये स्टॉक रिकमेंडेशंस आपको हेल्प करेंगे. हमारे एक्सपर्ट विकास जैन जो कि रिलायंस सिक्योरिटीज से हैं, उन्होंने ये रेकमेंड किया है कि आप खरीदारी करके चल सकते हैं बायोकॉन के स्टॉक पे. टारगेट प्राइस आप 460 का रखिए, वहीं स्टॉप लॉस 363 का आप लगाकर चल सकते हैं. आगे बढ़े तो अगले स्टॉक में इंजीनियर्स इंडिया में, जहां 2.25% तक की बढ़त देखने को मिली थी कल के ट्रेडिंग सेशन में, और तेजी देखने को मिल सकती है. 87 के टारगेट प्राइस यहां पर उन्होंने रेकमेंड किए हैं. स्टॉप लॉस नीचे में आप लगा के रखिए 69 रुपीज प्रति शेयर का. आगे बढ़े तो IGL में भी खरीदारी की राय यहां पर दी जा रही है. कल के सेशन में एक बॉइंट मूव था. 555 के टारगेट्स लगाकर रखिए और स्टॉप लॉस 495 का आप लगाकर चल सकते हैं. ये 3 पिक्स थी विकास जैन की तरफ से. नीरव छेड़ा मानते हैं कि अगर शॉर्ट साइड पर आपको कोई पोजीशन लेनी है तो IT मेजर इन्फोसिस पर आप ले सकते हैं. सबड्यूड विद पॉजिटिव बायस मूव कल दिखा था, लेकिन टारगेट प्राइस अब नीचे गिरता हुआ नजर आ सकता है 1325 तक. स्टॉप लॉस आप ऊपर में लगा के रखिए 1390 का. आगे बढ़ते हैं और देखते हैं NMDC के स्टॉक पर किस तरीके का मूव एक्सपेक्टेड है. नीरव मानते हैं खरीदारी करके चलनी चाहिए. 141 का टारगेट प्राइस यहां पर दिया है. स्टॉप लॉस 128 का आप लगाकर चल सकते हैं. आखिर में नोसिल, यहां पर खरीदारी की राय है. 195 के टारगेट्स के लिए स्टॉप लॉस आप लगा सकते हैं 165 रुपीज का. ऑल इन ऑल आपको 6 स्टॉक पिक्स मिल चुकी हैं मार्केट खुलने से सीधा पहले, जहां पर आप पहले से ही तैयारी कर सकते हैं स्टॉक्स को खरीदने के लिए या फिर बेचने के लिए. लेकिन किसी भी स्टॉक पर पोजीशन लेने से पहले अपने फाइनेंशियल एडवाइजर से जरूर बात कीजिए. चलिए इसी के साथ हम इस खास शो को यहीं समेटते हैं, लेकिन लगातार मार्केट के ओपनिंग एक्शन के लिए आप बने रहिए मनी 9 के साथ.